up as an item of interest
Okay.
as we got to the end. So I'm happy to hold that if you prefer.
All right. Super. Then do we have any other additions or changes or questions for tonight's agenda? Will somebody make a motion to pass?
I move that we accept it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Have you had a chance to review the summary notes? Is there a motion to pass summary notes?
Sure, I move that we accept the summary notes.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Todd seconds.
All in favor?
Well, I'd like to make a motion to amend real quick.
Oh,
To-
okay. So
If
sorry.
it's under 9B, I'd like to add the links that were provided to the board members, also available on the notes, so they're also available for the public.
Are you talking about the survey links?
Right, the surveys and just the master plan and everything, just so it's a nice consolidated area. So if someone wants to know what we talked about and what was sent to the board, that the community members can also know what transparently what was sent to the board.
Absolutely. I was hoping that we could polish up the links tonight, take a look at the surveys. I don't feel like they are ready to post. I'd like to have the board review them because we haven't had a chance to do that. But I just don't want to confuse people that they think that is the final link. When I really wanted to get all of the board's input on those before we launch it. I'm hoping we can launch it later tonight. That be fair?
Sure, I withdraw the motion then.
Okay. All right. Ken?
I was going to go look, make sure I knew what you're talking about, but you canceled it, so we're going to.
And that wasn't in our board meeting last week. I sent it over
Okay.
email for review.
Okay, well, we'll strike that and we'll strike the amendment until we.
We get it. Do we have any community comments?
We do. We've got Tom Meyer. And I'll go ahead and let him in.
Great. Would somebody like to be our timekeeper tonight?
I'll time it.
Thank you.
And I've
Sin.
retrained already. Is it 3 minutes?
I think we have 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I just got, I was just admitted by Tara.
Okay, Tom, you are on, and what do you have to share with us tonight?
Okay, start the clock. Yeah, Mr. Warner, I'm going to summarize to begin with. Mr. Warner takes a city-approved vacation in the aftermath of the worst city storm in city's history and hires the previous parks manager to cover at least a part of his responsibilities in an era of tight budgetary constraints. Mr. Warner is pictured without mask and not abiding by social distancing regulations while on vacation in Arizona. Mr.
Meyer, I would just like to ask that you follow the rules of the council and not engage in personal attacks, please. If you have
These are
something to
facts.
share that is of relevance to the Parks Board, I would really appreciate you stick to those facts, please.
Okay, Mr. Warner refuses. Give me a few more minutes now. Mr. Warner refuses.
Excuse me, Tom. Protocol is if you have a complaint about a staff member, you should talk to the city manager. And so are there park-related activities that you'd like to share with us tonight?
Yes, the use of
Great.
a contact tracing app. That's definitely a park-related issue.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
Mr.
Mr.
Meyer,
Warren.
this is Mayor Walters, and I would just ask that you confine your comments to that subject, please. If that's the most important thing tonight, and not engage in any personal attacks or make any staff comments, that would be appreciated. That's
It's hard to get to the facts without talking about the individual involved, but I'll try.
You know what? I think that you can figure out a way to do that. So I appreciate your working with us to make that happen. Thank you.
Okay. So the use of a contact tracing app in the way of playtime scheduler has been refused by both the city manager and the parks manager, and it's a life and death issue with me, and it's really a First Amendment right. There's no reason that contact tracing app should not be allowed. Mr. Warner made 2 Facebook friend requests of me, and to me, that's unexcusable. Mr. Warner ignores a report of a COVID positive contact in June of 2020 and refuses to comply with reporting requirements of the OHA. Mr. Warner refuses
Mr.
to add.
Meyer, I would just ask you not to make personal attacks on the staff and keep your comments for the Parks Board related.
Okay, Mr. Warner refuses to add a glyphosate ban to the PRAB agenda, given 400 plus petitioners who request a ban. That's not only PRAB's responsibility, but Mr. Warner is the head of the department. So I have to comment on the refusal of Mr. Warner and the reluctance of our anemic city manager to overrule Warner to utilize a free contact tracing tool at Tannery Creek Park. Without a statewide contact tracing app, which has been aborted statewide, the Playtime Scheduler app provides the only means of contact tracing of pickleball players in the entire metropolitan area. Managing a club which has already had 1 COVID positive individual, this insanity represents a death threat to me as an immune compromised cancer patient. If I contract COVID-19, I have a distinct possibility of creating a West Linn variant of COVID-19, a virulent strain far more infectious than the original strain of COVID-19. City management is willing to set aside the safety of not only this disabled cancer patient, but all West Linn residents in their refusal to allow the use of this free app. It's shameful and puts the lives of every West Linn resident at risk. Finally, once again ask for an immediate ban of glyphosates that the Parks Department prepares to once again spray all West Linn parks with Roundup. This is a known carcinogen, and it's obvious that the parks manager has not done any research with other venues statewide who utilize non-carcinogenic compounds to control weed. I don't know what's going to take other than a lawsuit to protect myself and all citizens of West Linn from the cancerous effects of chemicals used by the parks manager in an era when the Clackamas County has again been raised to a high alert COVID status. It's sad that we must not only be more conscious of COVID, but also the West Linn Park's use of a carcinogenic compound. Despite the presentation of over 400 signed petitioners,
Sorry, Mr. Meyer, your time has expired.
Yeah, well, I was interrupted repeatedly. So I'm going to continue.
Time is up.
Despite the presentation of over 400 signed petitioners, the department has not moved to ban glyphosates in city parks, nor even put it on the agenda for discussion.
Okay, Tom, thank you very much. We have heard your concern with contract tracing and with the pesticide. I'm going to speak for the board, and I do not think that we're in a position to even discuss contact tracing apps with the all of the regulations that go with that. That would be something for the city manager and the city attorney. That's not really, there are other issues there. And we've heard your concern about the pesticides. one of the things we'll be doing tonight is identifying specific meetings where specific issues will be discussed and result in a recommendation to City Council. That would probably fall into one of those categories. So are there any other questions or comments from the board?
I have one question, I guess. Given that Mr. Meyer has expressed that this is a life and death issue, is the board to understand that he has then not gone to Tanner Creek Park since these issues have come to light, the use of Roundup and the lack of a contact tracer?
Am I on?
You are.
I'll answer that question. Yes, I've discussed the issue with my doctor, and I've given that information to Mr. Warner, and he can discuss with him my use of a mask or not the use of a mask. He has given me the liberty of playing outdoors, and the only restriction is in social circumstances beyond the game. I have to use a mask as mandated by all the signs at Tanner Creek Park. And
okay, so then we would understand that it is in fact not a life or death issue.
it's a life or death issue if I contract COVID. And without a contact tracing app, I have no notification that an individual from outside the city who may be positive has wandered onto our turf and is mingling with our players. And I should be tested. That's the whole issue.
Okay, so in other words, the option of not participating in sports at Tanner Creek Park is not a viable option for you.
The doctor has encouraged me to exercise and has waived the use of a mask during exercise, that is pickleball at West Linn, Tanner Creek Park. And I've given that information to Mr. Warner. He can check with him. I'll waive my HIPAA rights. He can talk with Dr. Siegel.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any, Tara, do we have any other community comments today?
Nope, we do not.
Okay. So our next agenda item is, I don't have it in front of me, I'm so sorry. Printed everything but the agenda. Ken?
It's the board goals, the
Okay,
2021 board
it's
goals.
board goals. Then why don't I share, I have the document. Share.
You want me to put it up, Vicky?
Pardon me?
Would you like me to put it up?
I can't. I have all the links and everything.
Okay.
Okay, it's being loaded. First off, was for those of you who saw the Parks Board, not Parks Board, the City Council meeting, are there any board comments, questions, feedback, or reactions?
Vicki, can I just jump in, or are we doing hands up, or?
Oh, go ahead, Jane.
Okay. So it was a very thorough presentation. I thought you did a great job. And I like the way that you accentuated the need to involve the youth, because that was one of the highlighted points of the surveys and of the general presentation of results, that the youth need more outlets. I thought it was interesting also that 60%, over 60% of the community has people age 18 and under in their household. And so that is a strong facet that needs to be paid attention to.
Yeah, I was surprised by that statistic as well, Jane. Absolutely.
Vicky, I was not able to attend, and so I'd be interested to hear the response of the council. What kind of questions or feedback was given by the council? Thank you.
Well, Jules is here. I don't want to put her on the hot seat, but I will say that the general message from the council seemed to be very appreciative to have the information. And, you know, it's from March of 2019. So new council members really aren't familiar with the document. I think that it's important that we get them the links to the document, or at least the executive summary. I know that they requested that. And it was interesting. I'll share from my own perspective. I went through the entire master plan one more time before doing that. And I was struck with how much misinformation has occurred since March 2019. I really strongly encourage everyone to read through it. There is a lot of data in there. So I gave Jules a chance to gather her thoughts. Jules, do you have any feedback from the board as our board liaison?
I totally agree. It was a great presentation. So when I first saw a lot of the feedback from those surveys, it was when I was actually preparing to run for council. Actually, I hadn't even decided to run for council. I actually started running for council after I realized that we really needed to support our youth and fix our athletic fields. And I was grateful that that ended up on the bond. But what I heard in a lot of those conversations was a lot of misinformation about how the survey wasn't handled right, or maybe the questions weren't asked right. And I think all of us, any of us who have studied quantitative research, know that, you know, it's a science and it comes back, the results come back pretty clearly. So I was really happy to have Vicky walk us through it again. I hadn't seen it in so long. Biggest thing that I came away with was, again, how important aquatics are to this community, whether it be an indoor or outdoor aquatic facility or aquatic access at the river. That was the highest rated thing.
Yeah.
And also indoor recreational facilities was one of the greatest things. And I know as a parent, I mean, I've lived here since 2007. I've raised 4 kids. It rains here all the time, and for years it was like, oh, it's raining. I want to take my toddler. The only place we could go was McDonald's. And of course, I hate McDonald's, right? Well, okay, this is being recorded. I don't hate McDonald's, but I don't prefer to feed my kids McDonald's, but we would go there to play. And that's just, I think our community expects more from us, that we could provide some indoor recreation facilities. And the third thing that I think really resonated with the council was that overall, although we can always be updating our playground equipment, that they were really happy with the playground equipment we had available. And I am too. I mean, you go to any neighborhood in this city, and this one thing I love about West Linn is they're so equitable. Every single pocket of this community has a playground in it.
Yeah.
And which is great. And you can just walk down the street and take your kids and let them play. The other piece that I think we were really concerned about was how we had some SDC funds that were planned for the White Oak Savannah play area had been disregarded, and some Go Bond funds were pulled towards White Oak Savannah play area. And all of those funds were from the projects that are on the riverfront, which is what everybody is so excited about. And I really think if there's one thing the Parks and Rec Advisory Board could really focus on this year is like, I mean, the council will support you in this 100%. It's like, we want people to be able to access the river. Everybody wants that. And although it may be a great thing to have some sort of nature play area in the White Oak Savannah, it's not at the top of the list right now. We can make it happen with SDC funds when they become available, as it was actually laid out originally. And to continue to spend GO bond funds at the riverfront is really, to me, and I think a majority of the council, it's their priority. So thank you for all the work you're doing. And Vicki, thank you for laying out all of that great information so that we could really look at it and analyze it in a way that makes sense.
Great, thank you. And I've just scrolled to this new board really was it February? Forget which month. We really simplified our goals to 3. We want to be collaborative with everyone, and please focus priorities planning for near-term implementation of GO Bond 1816 and 1818. This entire board all identified that as number 1 priority. The outgoing board all identified that as the outgoing priority. And so, I think that that's a pretty clear message to City Council, but 2 different groups on the advisory board really emphasize that. So I don't know if, Jules, if I could ask, so is the board going to approve our goals, add to them, change them? What's the protocol for that? Because we came up with these to give to you, and then you had your goal setting. So then do you confirm them as a city council?
In my experience so far, and I would have to dig deeper into it, don't really have a say in what your goals are. We just hope that they align with ours. We give you some insight into what we're looking for from you, and that's something that I'm trying to strengthen so that when boards get together, they're just not out in the wilderness. They're working on council-related goals. But right now, I feel like Parks and Rec is completely aligned, so we'll support you.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. So can we assume then these goals we move forward with?
Sure.
Okay, great. I'm glad that we discussed that. So the other piece that was provided, we also included our protocol that we go back to every year. And then we had a draft to review. I got some really good input and I made the changes. And the intent with this is that it would be published. It could be in the city newsletter that goes out, and really make sure that people are aware of when we're going to be talking about certain things. And I do want to make sure that as a group, we vet this thoroughly, and we look at the survey to make sure that it's what you want it to be. Okay. So I did make all of the changes that were provided to me, and then I didn't get any more feedback after I sent out the revised version. So here we are in April, and we said we'd finalize our plan and community engagement strategy, get an update on GO Bond project overview, and specifically the GO Bond 1816, 1818. And then we also just wanted a quick update on the storm damage and financial impact. And then preparing for next month, excuse me, this, we got the Go Bond progress emailed to us and the Go Bond information. I'll be honest, I didn't read the budget report, and attending city council if possible. So what we'd like to do tonight is make sure that we have a finalized plan and finalized links and decide how we're going to post this, and then a short advisory report for city council. So first off, are we good with that for this month?
Yeah, looks great.
Okay. So then next month is a fun thing, and that's just a programming review. We have such amazing programming for a tiny little staff during a pandemic. It's amazing. But for our next meeting, if everyone could read our Parks and Rec program guide, and you know, if there are any photos, everybody on the council does certain volunteer activities. Would really like to start getting photos of some of the volunteer activities in the parks. And with that, do we want to go to the mini survey? And WebEx does not allow functionality. They pulled this, it pulls this up, and I can't change anything. I can't hyperlink. I could stop sharing this and pull up the survey if you would rather have me do that. Mhm.
So Vicky, are you gonna pull up the survey and just walk us through it? Is that what we're gonna do here over the next few minutes?
Yeah, I'm thinking that's
Okay.
probably my only problem is share content is only share file or whiteboard. It won't allow me to bring up a website. Probably because, you know, yeah, it won't allow me to.
Vicky, can you take a screenshot of it and then pull it up as a document?
Yeah, I can try that.
I can share it, Vicky, I think. Let me, since you are on here, let me try one thing to see if, oh no. I mean, that's okay. I give it.
Well, you
I
know
think
what? I can read it. How about that?
Vic-
I'll just read it. It's small, it's short.
Vicky,
Yeah.
go into share now and see if you have different options. I made you presenter, and I guess we can only have one. I'm not sure, but you should be able to share different things now.
Okay. Want to make sure I get the right surveys. So I only did 2. So this one is on programming. Can you see it?
I can.
Yeah,
Is it kind of a hazy green background?
yeah, it's got the park in the background.
Walking through Willamette Park. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
We need the summary, not just the survey.
this is the survey that we'd like to put on a link. It's a mini survey. So this just talks about programming and recreation, or rec programming. So there's just a little mini survey at each of the meetings. If you want, we can consolidate it into one link, and they can just put all of their information in, and we can keep it live and just look at the meeting related information.
Makes sense.
Would you prefer to have just one survey instead of mini surveys?
Yeah.
Okay, I can do that. So, Tara, I know that I missed some things. I did this super fast right before the board meeting. Have you participated in any of the events listed below in the last 5 years? Please rate your satisfaction with the event. And it goes from strongly dissatisfied to strongly satisfied, 4-point scale, no neutral, with the option of I have not attended this event in the last 5 years, which of course is not included in the weighted average. And so Old Time Fair, and I think fair is with an E. No? All right. Easter egg hunt, haunted trail at Mary S. Young, summer street dance, music in the park, volunteer parks cleanup, community classes, Westland team sports, Westland summer programming for children, parades, summer farmers market in Willamette, lighting at Maddox Woods for holidays. So how many errors did I make in that, Tara?
Well, we don't do the Easter egg hunt. I don't, if you, like this year we did, like passport,
Drive-through.
Easter egg passport.
Okay, Easter egg passport.
And yeah, haunted trail. Ken, is that been more than 5 years? I have to look at my
Sorry.
papers.
We've had it within the last 5 years,
But not the last 2 years.
just not the last 2 years. And then what I'd like to suggest, Tara, if there's anything else that you'd like to see changed, if you email it to me, I'll make those changes.
Okay. Oh, yeah. If you can add movies in the park.
Oh, movies in the park, of course.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that aren't here that happen.
Yeah.
Not in the last year, but happen, yeah.
I can email you some of the other holiday events if you
That
want.
would be great.
Okay.
And if there's any wording that you want to see changed, that would be great.
Vicky?
Yeah.
Are you trying to be as all-inclusive of what we do on the recreation side as you can?
I'm trying to paint a picture. There's two things. One, what do people think about this? And then two, psychologically, I think it's really important to remind people, yeah, it's been a tough pandemic year, but this is the stuff that we have invested in and we're still focused. I think it sends a message.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we get you what you need, because I think we need to break it down between youth classes, youth sports, adult programs, senior center activities, and so we're just kind of covering that programming spectrum of
That's great.
ages, and then we can go into events if we want to be, try to give them all the options of the large and small things we do.
Okay, I like that. It's a great message. I will also say, and Jane, this is why I mentioned this. I went ahead and sent you the link so you could see the functionality. But that link, if people start putting input in, I won't be able to revise it. I took a risk and send it to you with the message, please don't enter until we have it finalized. And then of course a comment section. And then I wanted to keep these really short, but make sure that there's a place for people to be heard. What is presently non-pandemic conditions offered through Westland Parks and Rec that you believe are the most important for our community and need to be sustained? And then considering what we already have, what is the most pressing need for our recreation in our community? Again, think outside of pandemic conditions. General feedback for the Parks and Rec, and then just some basic demographic information. I did not include gender, ethnicity, or retired, any of that. I just kind of focused on age group and if they have kids.
Vicky, when I said the links, I meant like the items that, oh, here it is, that were sent out with the Go bond updates and everything, and the project updates and all that kind of stuff, not the survey part.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant to send out the survey. It's like, it's not ready yet. Okay. So other than adding and fixing the items on the events, anything else you want to see or hear? Did you have any problem opening the link from the document? It's a hyperlink in the document. Okay. Then I'd like to go ahead and share the dog park. Let me see if this is the right survey. All right. So this is in edit mode. So I can actually, Westland Rec mini survey, dogs in parks. Figure give people a place to voice and move on. One of the things that I did, and I really needed to ask Ken, I looked at what the Oregon law was and I tried to work around that. So I started, everyone has a story. Describe your experience with other people's dogs on or off leash in our Westland parks. You know what? Let them be heard. Everyone has a story, you know, and just give them a place to share it. Westland has 2 sanctioned off-leash dog areas, one in the main parking lot at Mary S. Young. They're a portion of the beach, and dogs are considered to be running at leash. I took this right off the website, by the way. Okay, so Ken, I'm assuming that the website language was correct.
Yeah, there's basically 3 areas you can have dogs off leash in the city of Westland: private property and the 2 areas at Marius Young. That's correct.
Yeah. So I just, you know what? That's what the law is. What do you say? And
Zega Field is in Lake Oswego.
I know. I kind of ended the West Linn. Maybe I'll just do a there. Okay. And then I think that dogs need to be leashed at all times in public areas for their safety and the safety of others. That's the most extreme. Dogs should be leashed in public and can use designated areas. That's the way it is. We need more off-leash areas. I really toyed with adding an option of, I don't think dogs should have to be on leash, period. But I think that, if I recall, that actually violates Oregon law.
Yes, it does.
So I did not put that on there. This is for our new board members. This is an amazingly emotional, passionate, controversial issue in our community. And people are extremely, feel very strongly in their opinions, and their opinions are all across the spectrum.
On that note, can I ask a question then?
Yeah.
How are these results going to be tabulated and then publicized? It won't be like a running commentary of comments on the sidebar, is it, that will need to be monitored by staff? Or
This would, we bring all of the information to the board meeting, and it is,
so there won't be like a running comments then after each of the surveys or information that are made public that they'll be able to be reviewed before they're publicized. Because with the open fill-in spots, and you said it's a very conflicting topic, that is of concern, of course, that it gets out of hand and it's not monitored then in the government website.
well, I'll tell you my rule, because I do a lot of surveys for communities and governments. And one of the things that I always say to the organization is I don't provide all of the raw data, because if there are personal attacks, I do not want this to be a vehicle of personal attacks. If you want, you can just have ratings and not have open boxes. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Vicky, I
Vicky,
think,
go ahead.
okay. I was just going to say, I think just to confirm what Jane was saying is that this is an individual private survey that comes back to us. It's not, I fill it out and then the next person sees what I said and they add to it.
Right.
It's a private survey back. Only you'll be able to look at the results and censor as needed in line with how we operate things.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And the only things that I take out are obscenities, or where someone has is using it to personally attack another person or degrade any individual or group. So because that can be very damaging. That's the only thing I really take out.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have a couple questions on this particular survey. Do you have a question regarding the rating of the dog parks?
That's a good addition.
Yeah, I was just thinking rating of the dog parks, and then, are the amenities of the dog parks what's necessary? For example, is there a water source at the dog park or not?
I love that. I will.
So Vicky, if I can, I'll give you a couple comments just
Yeah.
for fun. So when we ask people what they want, they're going to want it. That question that we looked at for so long, I think every owner of a dog in our city is going to say, I want more dog parks. And I think we know that. I don't know what that tells us.
Right.
For me, the things that are important to take a look at are, when you talk about keeping dogs safe, do we need separate areas for small, timid dogs and large dogs? Should dog parks be fenced? Some of those different things that some people think, some people think that we should allow dogs on all the trails at Marius Young. That's a decision we're probably not going to make as a city, because all the evidence says it's harmful to all the native plants, it's harmful to wildlife, and those types of things. So, those are things that I think we've heard through the years. Just kind of my input on what I've heard, but.
Okay, I'm going to start a new question.
A lot of them have little play areas inside of them. They have bridges and they have hoops and playground for dogs, but I don't personally know how important that is to the masses. They look really neat, but I'll throw it out.
Yeah, they've got that at Westmoreland. I'm sure you know. It's kind of interesting, the little playthings that they've got. But I mean, I think if you've got a ball and a dog in a fenced-in area, you can live with it.
Okay, so did I get those? I like our current off-leash areas. Our off-leash area should be separated for large and small dogs. Our off-leash area should be fenced. I would like more variety for our dogs in the off-leash area. Variety, activity variety. Ken, did I get all the things that you said?
Yeah, I just think those are things that we heard over the past couple of years from different groups or people when they talk to us or email.
Okay.
May I interrupt for one quick second, Ken?
Yeah.
Are we still doing public comment at the beginning and end of this meeting, or has that been changed?
We did public comment at the beginning of the meeting.
Yes,
We don't do
but
it
are
at the
we
end.
still doing it at the end?
No. No,
Okay.
we had 3 minutes at the beginning and 3 minutes at the end. And we stopped the end comments and just made it 5 minutes at the beginning.
Perfect. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to sign off of this meeting and go to another meeting, so I just wanted to make sure you didn't need me at the last part.
Okay.
And thank you, everybody, for all your work. I
Thanks for
appreciate you so
coming.
much. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you.
Thank you, Jules. Love having you here.
All right. Night night. Night night. Like you're,
Night night.
I'm a mom. Can you tell?
I know, yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay. All right, so I have, please rate the following statements. And they have the NA option that isn't weighted. Oh, I should add a comment box there. Okay. Ken, is there anything else that, and John, you too, you were involved with all of the issues around the leash
Well, I mean, we had, as you remember, back in the day, a long time ago, probably 7 or 8 years ago, there was a group of people that wanted to have their dogs off leash all over Marius Young.
Yeah.
I mean, which was, as we all know, when it happens, is a disaster. There's enough problems in the dog park that's not fenced, but just having off-leash dogs there, people have had significant problems. But certainly people have had a lot of problems with off-leash dogs over time on the trails. And so it's been pretty clear that we didn't want to have dogs on the trails off leash. The difficulty has been, at Marius Young anyway, is that the police don't like to enforce the rule, because most policemen, believe it or not, if you talk to them, have dogs and they don't want to find somebody. So they give people warnings, but it's really rare that they give tickets. And if you get a ticket as a dog owner, you know that if you take it to court, they'll throw it away. So that having a dog off leash doesn't really have any downside. I mean, unless it attacks somebody and that person sues you. But the bottom line is that most people at Marius Young now have their dogs on leash when they're on the trails. I mean, I'm on the trails pretty much 6 or 7 times a week at Marius Young, and it's pretty rare that there are dogs off leash. There are some, but they're usually, 12-year-old dogs that have trouble walking and couldn't attack you if they wanted to. So it's not a great problem, because the people that used to really be adamant about their dogs running free on the trails have left. So, Don Kingsborough's in the park more than I am, and he'll tell you he's a real dog person. It's pretty rare. It's pretty rare for there to be an issue with dogs off leash on the trails. It can happen, but it's not like a big deal.
And then I will say, Ken, if we feel like we're at a place where people are comfortable and confident and everyone's playing well together, we don't even have to bring it up. I just wanted us to make sure if we felt like there were issues that we could have a specific place and time to get the input and make our recommendations. Even if the recommendation is, we recommend City Council that we keep everything exactly as it is. We opened it up, we heard, and here's our recommendation. But I'm happy to totally take the dog thing off the table. If the perception is everybody's playing well together, it's not an issue anymore, then I don't recommend that we have this.
But we did have someone come to our board. They would like to have another dog park.
Okay.
It was at the end of last year or early this year, I don't recall, but so I think it's a conversation, that we would like to have input on. I think,
Okay.
where, I have questions of what do you take away? Where does it go? Where do you put it? What neighbors are going to be happy with it? I mean, all kinds of things, we don't have a designated spot. I think Marius Young has just operated as an off-leash dog park, at least since I got here, at least 28 years. And I'm not sure what it did before that, but it's just always been off-leash dog park there. And if there's a movement to change that one, I think it's a conversation we should have, but doesn't necessarily mean we have to change anything, but we have data. And off topic, Vicki, just so you know, Doug Vokes did pop into the lobby, and you may want to do community comments. I'll just mention that to you.
Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to recommend that we publish our calendar and we take the survey links off. Give us a chance to consolidate it, and then I'm going to send it out as a PDF, because I want to make sure the city manager and the city attorney and make sure that it's vetted. It does have the West Linn logo on it, and so I want to make sure that if we're going to not have mini surveys, we're going to put it all together, that we do run it by other people. I don't want us to be accused of going rogue. Want to make sure that we get their input. Ken, do you think that that's a good direction?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how far we have to vet it, but I think that's reasonable not to put it out if everybody's not comfortable that we're going to get the information we want or something, but yeah.
So what are some of the questions that you have? If I'm going to put it all into one of our, we have programming, we have dogs in parks, we have kind of a park review. So the only big one that we don't have is kind of the park review. And what I'd like to ask is if people could, if you think about, we went to look at the parks, what are the questions that we need? And I would like to gather those up electronically. Could you guys forward those the items of interest that you have in general about accessibility, safety, maintenance, invasive species, etc. And we can make that a kind of a robust section of the survey. What do you think, Ken?
Well, I think the area that you're entering as far as park review is a very complex area.
Yes.
The accessibility, Americans with Disability Act for Parks, I think is over 300 pages. When you get into safety, there are basic things, but we have certified playground inspectors that, deal with the playground issues, maintenance. I mean, it's just a lot. There's a lot to open and unpack right there, Vicki. But I think, if the board wants to go review things, I think that you can, scale it down and bring back whatever information that they see that might be interesting, a deficit, concern.
But also a strength.
Yeah, maybe the board just goes and looks, and they don't have to have a ton of guidance, but just eyeballs that come back to the board and say, "Here's what I saw," and
yeah.
So Vicki, if we're going to put this all as one survey, to Ken's point, maybe there's just two open-ended questions. What do you like about our parks? What do you dislike about our parks? Or something simple like that. I mean, really, the survey is to try and get engagement from the community, right? It's not that we're going to use the survey to actually make a financial decision necessarily at this point. We're gathering information. We're trying to get the community to engage. So if we keep it simple, instead of 300 questions about, access for noxious weeds, too big of trees, too little trees, and just kind of, what is it that you like and what you don't? That will help kind of promote the conversation, and we might gain some new insight.
Okay.
Just throw that out as an option.
Vicki, I'd kind of pile on a little bit. I guess I like the idea of having the categories, things like, pedestrian safety, accessibility, things like that as kind of headings. Here are some areas to kind of, guide your viewing or guide your observations, and then organize. It also allows people to organize their comments in those categories. So some of them, as Ken said, they may well be addressed by specific issues in the codes and regulations and so forth, but otherwise they may in fact highlight something that has been overlooked that needs attention.
How about if I just have kind of a list of pedestrian safety, trail safety, playground safety, and and then they can just rate it.
Yeah, and I would even say something like degraded infrastructure, like where there was a undercut. If you got a paved trail that's been undercut by high water or something like that, you may not be exactly a safety issue yet, but it's something that needs maintenance attention or something.
I'm trying to do all of our neighborhoods from memory. I know I'm missing some.
Well, don't do it then.
No, I think that
do it by looking at. I mean, there's a listing if you get on the parks.
I know.
If you want all the parks,
maybe
if you want all the parks, you're going to need a lot of lines.
No. These are neighborhood associations.
So
I think a lot of the questions that we're trying to see if there's any interest in were covered in the survey, in the questionnaire that was sent out. And so I think maybe asking for each of these individual details and individual plans is kind of just reinventing the wheel that we already have really good qualitative and quantitative data on from just a few years ago. So I like maybe the activities, which do you like? I would say that keep that structure, and then just go on to, like Todd said, what do you want to see? What don't you want to see? And then just go from there. Because we already have a lot of these details from the recent survey.
Good point,
Yeah.
Jane. Really good
And
point.
You're exactly right. We know what people are going to want. They're going to want an indoor facility. Okay?
Right.
And they're going to want probably some water. Now, when we've done surveys, a lot of people want that. When you put it on the election board to fund it, it goes down. Last time it was there, it went down 2-1. So there are different people now living in West Linn than whenever that was. I think the last time we voted on it was 6 years ago. I can't remember exactly when it was. But I mean, people want that, but they kind of don't want to pay for it. Because an indoor facility, particularly an indoor facility that has water, people would like to have that. But when you look at what it costs, then it becomes different.
Right. Well,
So we've gone that route before. We spent a long time on an aquatic center. I mean, many, many years on the Parks Board, looking at it, doing surveys, looking at costs and all that other kind of stuff. And it got soundly defeated. I mean, not just by a little bit, it was 2-1. So I don't know if we can ask people what they want, but I think we know what we're going to get. Is that
well, I'm
we
wondering.
have great outdoor facilities in terms of parks, and what we need, if we really look at what we want and probably need, and Ken, you know this quite well, is an indoor facility that was huge and had gyms and had other kinds of stuff and had, maybe some water, would be very expensive to build and then expensive to maintain, particularly if you put water in it. If you take the water away, then it becomes less expensive to maintain. But you put the water in it, and it's really expensive. I mean, most people that have pools are finding that it's really expensive to keep them.
So, if you want, we don't have to have any surveys. We could just put at the top of this, if you have input to this agenda, email it to the Parks Board or email it to a specific email address for compilation. If we can get it just real simple and just, if you have anything for this week's meetings, you can email it. That takes away the anonymity and it takes away the kind of to the masses, but
Yeah, I don't know. I like the idea of your surveys. I'd like to figure out a way to keep it short and simple, but seek some engagement with the community.
okay. Well, tell you what. Oh, go ahead.
I feel the same. I mean, I feel the same way. I think that we just need to probably, maybe if we can keep them simple.
Yeah,
And,
keep it really simple.
find, even through simple, find areas of interest and then maybe move in that direction if that's the case. I saw you type neighborhood associations.
Yeah.
So my guess is 50% of people don't know what neighborhood association they're in. And I would prefer to just work with people as individuals and not tie them to a neighborhood association. Neighborhood associations have their purpose, but we don't necessarily want to go through them to reach the population of our city. That makes sense.
You got it.
There,
I just
we
pick it up.
always ask them for input, but it's just one medium that we use to reach around the city, I guess.
Okay. Well, I'll take the action item of taking all of the feedback and merging them into one. And I will take ownership for sending that back out to the board for review. I'm going to send it as a PDF because I'm really afraid that once it just takes one person to start typing in an answer and then I can't really change it after that. Do you guys like having this is from Willamette Park. I used kind of that as the background, or is it too distracting?
No, it doesn't distract me.
It's good.
I
Okay.
like it.
All right, then I'll just take all of the feedback and make, do another draft, and we can take these off of our calendar. Did we have anything else or anything that is important that you wanted? Again, just a kind of a key topic each month that we prepare for. I just wanted to see if you wanted to make any adjustments to this calendar, or if you wanted to make a motion to approve it.
Vicky, can I make one more comment just on one of your static agenda items?
Yeah.
So the Go Bond projects 1816 and 1818. So 1816 is predominantly the non-motorized boat and water access in Willamette Park, along with parking. And 1818 is the waterfront park below Burnett Landing Boat Ramp, Willamette Park, going down towards the locks. I don't have a problem giving you an update on those every month, but I don't think there's going to be much of an update every month. Both of those, well, here's an example. So 1816 is being worked on, but we potentially have probably 8 months of consultants work just to get the project into land use. So I won't even know exactly what's happening, with much to update. 1818, the waterfront park, our council is very interested in that, but that is working with, PGE, a new private property owner that owns the west property, Willamette Paper that has the lease around, their pond. So there's a lot of heavy lifting with kind of just dealing with people, conversations, and then, easements from PGE once we figure out we can do a trail extension. And then as we get into the park, so I just don't want the board to have expectations that there's going to be a lot of things happen in 1 month. That makes sense.
I understand the magnitude of these projects and the steps that you have to go through, but it sounded at our first meeting that was the priority of the Parks Board. And so it's, even if it's we're waiting to hear back from PGE, it can be 3 minutes long, but we went through all of 2020 and didn't make a lot of progress, and don't want to make it through 2021 without getting those balls rolling. Is that fair? That's only my opinion. Parks Board, what do you guys think?
Well, I guess I'd have to say, as interested as I am in that, I kind of agree with Ken that there's probably not going to be enough each month to necessarily rate time in a relatively short meeting for an update. We might be better off doing it quarterly.
You got it. Okay.
Okay,
I
that's
can
good.
certainly bring an update if anything happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing happens,
Yeah.
you can just say nothing happened.
Right.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Any other changes?
No, I think they're good.
Okay. Awesome. Do you want to make a motion to accept this without the links and taking the status update off? Because that's in our goals. I mean, it's right up there in the goals, so.
Sure, I'll move that we do that.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Are there any comments, additional discussion from the board? Can we vote? All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed? Awesome. So, I'm just getting out of here, sorry. Am I still sharing?
Yes,
I am, okay.
we've got the first page of the of your
Take that
the
away.
document.
So I'm trying to unshare. Ken, can you stop my share? Hey,
Sure. At the top of your screen, if you go to the top of your screen, a bar should pop down.
mm-hmm.
It lets you unshare. I can maybe. Okay, now you're at a whiteboard.
Mm-hmm. We've had this problem before and you had to.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you. Okay.
Don't ask me to do it again. I'm not sure I can.
What's next on the agenda, Ken?
Items of interest for the board.
All right. What are some items of interest from the board?
Well,
So
I'm
I'll just-
interested. Go ahead.
Okay. I was talking to Ken before the meeting began, and we stopped, and I just wanted to bring it up, and I guess I'll put it in the form of a question. Part of our homework for this month was to read the budget report, but I haven't seen that. Did I miss that when it was distributed, or is there a link to that we could review it? I assume we're talking about the budget submission for the next 2-year budget cycle that Parks and Rec has submitted.
Well, Ken?
I didn't write that. So I don't have a clear answer. I think as we kind of talked though, I mean, like I was saying, this is a great plan. Get you guys so engaged in everything. Council liked it. You're going to do great things. But this does not exactly coincide with things that I have to do and our department has to do on a different timeline than you're doing. Right. So I'm not sure what the budget report was. We've been working on a budget that I just got like 3 days ago and had to refine, and go meet with our budget director, the deputy and city manager and put it all together and have it to them yesterday. So it happened really fast, so I'm not sure. And it's still all in draft form. It'll be put into a little booklet and it'll go to our budget committee. And then they have meetings 2 weeks in May 17th through 26th, 4 different meetings where they discuss it with council. Then it goes to council to be approved in June. Now, city budget has a number of pieces to it. We have our line item budget. And then along with that, each year we have a master fee schedule that can be adjusted by different departments and then approved. We have our capital improvement program that is only updated every 2 years. So all those pieces, kind of have to blend together every 2 years for our biannual budget, which is where we are now. We are, as a staff, I would say our city staff feels starting late because we had this giant storm that has set us back probably almost 6 weeks in a lot of different areas as department heads along with the pandemic. So, it's just one of those unique, challenging times, but that's a long way to say, Chris, I'm not sure what we were supposed to do or what you were supposed to see. I apologize.
Okay, so I guess then the follow-on question is how the board works. Is it part of the board's routine that during the budget cycle, so earlier in the cycle than April, that the Parks and Rec board advises on, looks at what the department is considering or is planning to submit and provides input based on based on, you know, the work we've done over the year working up to that point. Now,
Great question. And last year was very unique. I mean, it wasn't a budget year. My first year as director, and Vicki and John, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the Parks Board has ever really been shown the budget and explained the budget and where the money all goes and what accounts we have. Is that an accurate statement for the most part?
There was one presentation that talked about all of the different funding streams and the expenses. I do think that it would be a good thing for us to look at the funding streams and what's budgeted. And maybe for the April meeting, it was too soon with all of the storm drama and trauma. But I do think before it goes to the council for vote, it should go to the advisory board and have an opportunity to review it. And we can give our advisory report to the council.
Yeah, like I said, I just don't recall. And you know, even in the middle of this meeting, we can pull up, you know, we could pull up Encode, which is our financial software. We could look at our budget. I can show you revenue streams. I can show you the line items in our budget, where the money goes. I mean, not that we have to do that tonight, but you know, just to see what those are. I mean, like I say, it's just something that I didn't recall necessarily having the board weigh in on, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Not that that was right or wrong, just didn't happen.
in the 3 terms that I was on the board before I was off for a little while and now back on, usually what we got was, this is where we're going to put money into various parks. So you would give us information on, here are the park projects that are happening in every park. You know, like when we redid, you know, whatever park you want to pick in the last 10 to 15 years. And it was like, here's the money that we have. Here's maybe the money that we need, but here's the stuff we're doing. And so very commonly what you've done is, we're redoing Sunset Park after the school was rebuilt and that sort of thing. And as a Parks Board, that was very interesting to know, is that, you know, here's where we are in doing that sort of stuff. I mean, where all the money comes from, I think most of us know the various sources that it comes from. We could certainly see that, but that part of the budget is something that you guys do, not something that we do. I mean, I don't think we would expect the Parks Board to look at you, Ken, and say, well, give us the total amount of money you have and we'll tell you where you should spend it, because I don't think that's our job.
No.
That's not our job.
Yeah, and
Nor
I
do
know
I
that,
want it to be my job.
right. And I know the previous Ken had brought the capital improvements program,
Right.
which included, which we kind of do now, which is the GO bond, and we just haven't
Right.
been doing many other projects because that's the focus right now. But I mean, those are absolutely conversations that we can have and you can see, and you know, because it's kind of, you know, you should know where the money comes from. Is it general fund out of our Parks and Rec budget, or is it a systems development charges project? What are we projecting, you know, out? Why did we do that? And just answer questions.
So change that to project budget. And you did send that out before the meeting.
Right.
Right?
And that's just GO bond, which, like I say, is really where council is focusing. Not that we don't have things moving slowly in the background. You know, I can tell you our systems development charges fund is just very low right now because things are being built, but they are being financed by developers, so that money will slowly come in. We have just went through a systems development charges study, and we will be evaluating the study by the consulting firm and see if we need to change our systems development charges, whether they be parks, water, sewer, or streets as we move forward. So, you know, you may hear about that development they want to pay their way, and so, but those are things we can.
Okay. So it sounds like we want to keep it to the projects. Chris, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I think what Ken describes makes sense.
Okay.
So we want to
And-
talk about the work from all the damage that's been done in the parks. I mean, obviously I spend time in the trails at Mary S, but
And certainly keep in mind, if you have questions as a board member or, a citizen or not necessarily outside of these meetings, certainly send me an email. We can Zoom or whatever. We can talk about, specific questions you have in different areas of our specific parks moving by or, budgets or something, feel free.
So it sounded like it was an interest point for a quick update on storm damage and where we're at.
Yep.
So we are nearing, except for probably 2 parks, we are nearing the end of hazard removal in our park system. So we do have tree climbers that are removing potential hazards above trails only at Marius Young Park. If it's out in the middle of the park, we're not going to remove everything that might fall in the woods. We are going to also do the same thing at Wilderness Park. A lot of different trees up there, a lot more Douglas firs, but we will have the climbers go through and remove those things that potentially are hazards above trails. Once again, if it's out in the middle of the open space, we're not overly concerned. We have removed to date, I think we are at about 230 trees removed in our park system. Smaller parks, it's a little more devastating than Mary S. Young that, is a 128-acre park. We have large piles of debris. We have 30,000 cubic yards at Mary S. Young. If you drive in there, the overflow gravel parking lot, it's pretty much completely full except a little alley to drive back there. As a city, we're pretty much done bringing debris there. We also have a large volume of debris up at the Wilderness Park of Clark. And it just kind of got pushed back in because we ran out of space. The big dilemma we're working on right now is where do we take it and where does it go? So we're trying to work with the county and reach out to everyone we can think of who might be able to take some of this poor man's hog fuel, I'll call it, because we've put it through a shredder at Marius Young, a portion of it, but we had so much volume. It was a shredder that was larger than a chipper that you kind of see most companies use. So it doesn't really make it small enough to be really useful even on our trails. It kind of strips it into strips. So we have a couple of options we're looking at. Do we bring in a chipper and make it a little more useful for homes and individuals that may want to take it home? It does good for ground cover. It's not, pretty bark dust for the front of your home. We're looking at where we can truck it and ship it. Some of those costs are going to be covered potentially under FEMA disaster funds. But we have to figure out where to take it that doesn't cost us another $250,000 to get it out of here. And, the big thing is we know we're probably going to have to truck it, but we don't want to pay a bunch of money. Put it somewhere. As far as the parks department, we will probably approach $300,000 as a cost out of our fund for storm damage. Most of that is turf repair, where the trucks have had to drive into parks. Fortunate and had just a little bit of damage. We had some fence damage around a couple tennis courts. We had a skylight get broken out at Willamette. We had a little damage to shelter at Mary S. Young. But we were fortunate that we didn't big trees fall on any of our restrooms we have throughout our park system. So we're hopeful and working hard to meet the FEMA requirements so that we can We think that about between 1,600 and 1,800 street trees were removed from in front of homes in our community. So city council down the road will be deciding how that's handled with the stump grinding, tree selection, tree replacement, and how that's funded. Those are traditionally responsibility of the property owner. All circumstances to, we're hopeful that certainly assist, residents that had trees collapse in front of their homes. Decisions that aren't made yet.
I've had, in my own neighborhood, I have had people complain that it wasn't enough, and I think they're nuts because I shouldn't have a judgment there. I'm sorry. I think the city did an amazing job helping the homeowners with the debris pickup. I thought it was wonderful. I have been asked about the plan for tree replacement, and if that's, I assume that's being put into the whole budget of loss that we're submitting to FEMA. But I've had, I think, 3 different people who know I'm on the Parks Board ask about tree replacement.
And that's the biggest question. Work with FEMA, the federal agencies. There are so many requirements and things that we don't obviously do on a regular basis, and meeting all their requirements with contracting. We're working closely with the county, who has a little more emergency management staff than we do, so we can intelligently make those decisions. But we just don't have answers, honestly, on how that's going to be funded. When you talk about replacing a street tree, we're potentially talking about $1,000 a tree. Stump grinding, some issues. Now we have to buy the tree. You're at $1.6 million to replace the trees on the street potentially. So that's why we just don't have all.
And what I've told people that have asked me is that FEMA money takes a long time to come in, because Ken has mentioned that, and that we're not going to plant stuff in the summer. And it's going to be a long time before, it's going to be a long project. We have to get funding, and then we have to plant it. It'll be years before we've replanted the trees that we lost in the ice storm around the city. Just will, that sort of stuff. So my one question at Mary S. Youngkin is that, are we done with trying to get rid of the stuff that's on the south side of that trail near the soccer fields, or are we going to chip that stuff? Or do we need to do it in a volunteer basis?
Well, so we have, the dilemma we had, John, was we don't have a lot of labor, as you know, to drag all of the debris out to the street where it's easily accessible. So a lot of places, and the dilemma we had is we don't want to pay highly skilled personnel up to $100+ an hour to drag branches.
Right.
So unfortunately, with the risk of not being reimbursed by FEMA for some things, we're cutting and leaving. So we will be going back to all the parks and either chipping, collecting, or carrying away everything laying there, which will take quite a bit of time. But in your specific case, there's a lot of debris there. We will probably go in there with a chipper potentially, but we will only do it during the summer, which is not going to damage anything.
Okay.
But you
So
can
it's going to be a
rebuild.
while. The other option that we have, if you look at all the people that I gathered up that Saturday with chainsaws, is we could gather up a bunch of people. And if you look at this stuff that's near the trails, there's a lot of big stuff, not huge stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that if you were trying to even chip it, it would be hard to chip without having somebody cut it up. I could get some people to come back, and we could work on getting that down to, smaller stuff that would be much easier for your staff to deal with in the summer.
Absolutely. If that's, if the volunteers want to do that, that's fabulous. And if they want to drag it to the street where we can pick it up with a machine, that would be awesome. Whatever they
Okay,
want to
well, I
do,
mean,
John, that's fine.
That's something, I mean, if your plan is not to go after it till the summer, I can start to rebuild that trail some, because you're not gonna drive on it now. And then I can get some guys with chainsaws and we'll see if we can't chunk it into stuff that we could put in the back of some trailers and stuff that we've already, got on the trail, to drag it someplace where it's much easier for you guys to get at.
Yeah.
And if we could get it, if we can get it to the sidewalk there, people will take it for firewood, which, we've always let people do. So that's fine too.
Okay.
We,
Okay, well, I'll talk to the guys that, my group that works in the park and see what we can put together to consider doing something like that. Because right now, I'm happy to work on that. I just didn't want to do it if the integrity guys were going to do it, because, they started chipping stuff and then they kind of quit. But when I look at they've got to do there, that would be very expensive to have them do all that stuff.
we're going to take care of it. We may end up renting chippers and hiring crews, but they won't be $100+ an hour crews.
Ken,
Right.
is there a discrete task that would be appropriate for Boy Scouts? We could call it a conservation project.
Walk
Oh, I
into a
can give you
park and there's a
something.
bunch of sticks. Let's have Boy Scouts drag them out. Is that what you're looking for? I don't know what you mean by discreet.
Well, here is the area. This is where it's very clear from this to this.
Yeah, I could give you
do
that in Marriott Young for a whole
Yeah,
troop to do a day's
We
worth
can,
of work.
there's, Vicky, if they don't want to move sticks, we can bring them wheelbarrows, and we have chip piles in different parks where they can start putting chips that are appropriate on trails. There's a lot of things that, we could use help with, to be honest. And we can try to make it not just drag sticks to the curb, so they could, see maybe a finished product when they're done. I know John wants them at Marius Young, but
Well, there's a lot of places.
Yeah.
I think if you think where we're at right now, Ken, is that if FEMA money comes, it's going to be a while. If we want to make our parks better, I think we want to access the volunteers, because there's a lot of people that want to volunteer in the park. We just have to try to arrange that, because we've got a lot of groups in a lot of places that'll do that. Boy Scouts is a great thing. I'm happy where I'm at Marius Young to use them in lots of different ways.
Right.
And some of the stuff is so big, even in the piles there, that we've got to cut it up so we can move it. If it was small, but there's enough small stuff that we could send we could have a troop drag a lot of stuff out to the road where you could access it from the road, and then Don can move it with his tractor.
We've had groups in about 5 different parks already, so
Right.
certainly we welcome all the help. Absolutely.
I'd like to suggest that if we can have, these are the things that we'd like to see happen, and get it into the city newsletter and say, with the debris, if you want firewood, get your firewood. If you can, if you're walking through the park and can move from this place to this place a little bit, and then I can take that and go to the Boy Scouts and set up a conservation project and say, this is something that we need parents at as well. Parents with chainsaws who know what they're doing. Boys with wheelbarrows.
Well, yeah, and all we'd ask, we're doing that now, and Tara Tara coordinates all our Adopt a Park and volunteer groups, and coordinates with, our park maintenance supervisor to make sure that we get the right group to the right park, number one, so they can do the job. Number two, last thing we want to do is send people out for a 3-hour volunteer and there's only 20 minutes worth of work, because, they want to stay busy. So, that would be great, Vicki. We can, pair any group up with responsibilities. We, even young kids, we can put them to work. 6 and 7-year-olds we've done in the past. Just it's almost time to plant flowers, so they can come out.
I don't know, Ken, because Cub Scouts have the 3S rule. Sticks and stones stay on the ground. Sorry. Den leader, 10 years.
Those rules.
Bad joke, sorry. Are there any other items of interest from the board?
Are we gonna walk through the GoBond stuff that we were sent? Is that I thought that was one of our activities for today, was to go through all of the stuff that was sent. Is that with his update, or is that?
That's his update.
Okay.
Are we ready to move on to that? Okay. So it was emailed out. Did people get a chance to look through that? I think it's interesting. This is the 2018 GoBond Park Project Update and Recommendations. My question was, is this the report on what was identified in 2018? Or does this include all of the other things that have been funded with GoBond funds? You're on mute.
Sorry. So this is the original list that was given to the Parks and Rec Department that was approved in September of 2018 by City Council. Complete, basically. And so that, this, we've updated them along the way, and I did it Monday. The only, there are decisions that were recommended to council through our department based on certain things that have occurred. And then, as I can explain at the bottom, where we had to adjust money because we had an infusion of $425,000 in extra money for the White Oak Savannah. I apologize. I'm trying to change myself to the presenter now so I can pull it up. Sorry about that. Which I think I did. Okay, hopefully we can see it now. Yeah. Okay. So this is the exact document that we walked through with City Council to give them updates on Monday night. We will also be going back to them to re-examine Parks GoBond projects on April 19th. They wanted us to come back. So 1801 was our athletic field renovation projects. The last one we have here is Hammerly Park. As things have evolved and we're trying to work with our youth sports program, it's kind of been difficult when they didn't play last year. Hammerly has a very small field. And it's used some, but we're trying to decide who really wants to use it going forward and what does it need to be. So we're working there with them. Bensky Park is a project list that is completely finished. We installed irrigation, put in new waste receptacles, added adjustable basketball hoop and an asphalt overlay and repaired it where needed. Hammerly Park started there a long time ago. You want me to read all these or just kind of tell you where we're at?
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Hammerly Park, we are trying to work with contractors. We're going to add pickleball courts at Hammerly Park. We are working to try to get bids on an ADA pathway that will kind of connect the shelter area, the parking area to the courts. Bids on the courts. We want to improve the fence. Part of the fence got damaged, but we want to, it's a really old fence. So since it's damaged, try to make it look a little better. Maddox Woods, we are going to be adding a on-the-ground viewing platform for their programs they do there. There's one that goes at a deck that goes sloughing away. We repaired it twice and it just doesn't make sense to river. Mary S. Young have to replace a bridge and boardwalk system. All landslide and storm. As planned, the boardwalk was way where the beaver was damming things up, but we don't think we need that since we put some berms around the athletic fields when they were done. McLean House wants a pavilion to replace their current 30 by 60 seasonal tent. It's a challenging project because it's underfunded potentially by over $200,000. It's a wood structure that has to meet historic review board approval and match the.
Can you
Skyrocket. Sorry?
Is anybody else having problems hearing Ken?
Yes, a little bit.
Okay, is that better?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I must have scooted back. I apologize. So McLean House we're working on, but it is underfunded and we let council know that. Mid Hill Park, we have a proposed Eagle Scout project that will replace one of our bridges that got damaged. North Willamette Park is kind of a 3-level park. If you haven't seen it, it has some drainage issues we're going to address as the water kind of flows from the upper level past the tennis courts down to the lower playground. We are exploring what we want to do with this very high area where it stays wet and damp. Do we want to put a piece back we had to remove? So we're exploring that, and we have some boardwalk damage throughout the park. Palomino Park, the neighborhood wanted a little more play equipment for older kids, so we purchased a climbing structure that we were ready to install for the ice storm, and we will install. And we're going to get an ADA pathway from the basketball court down there, and also add a concrete board around the playground that holds our safety chips in. Robinwood Park, we're looking at resurfacing the court. It sits down in a bowl also, and we had to do some drainage remediation with some walls and walls. So we're exploring. It's a big court. As we look at it, do we add a pickleball court? Do we leave it basketball? I'm just haven't made a decision there yet. Skyline Ridge Park, as you know, we put in tennis pickleball courts. Pickleball courts are closed. Surfacing that for tennis. We have a cost of $8,000. I'm checking with Go Bond Council. I don't know if we can pay for that and kind of do a project a second time with Go Bonds, but I'm looking at our finance department to figure that out. The neighborhood association has restroom. With our current staffing levels, park size, and utilization, we are recommending that a permanent restroom doesn't get built at that park. I recommend restroom going forward, just like we're doing at a couple other parks where people have wanted new restrooms. Where are we? Henner Creek Park, we are recommending at this park that at this time, we do not cover a pickleball court. And that's based on a city council vote last year and our Parks Board vote. My professional opinion, it's not a great location to add that type of amenity on one single court. Willamette Park, down by the river, we're going to replace the roof on a gazebo, the smallest one we have over there. And then, as I stated, we are working with consulting firms, our engineering department, because what we've grown this project a little. Originally, we talked about water access, improving that beach area, cleaning it up, adding an accessible pathway, and adding parking for the boat ramp. And our public works department wants to improve Old Street all the way through the park, where we don't have curb gutters, sidewalks, and standard street width. So it's a big,
Chad.
yeah. So it would be all the way from Walton Avenue, all the way on that upper side where it's bare, improving all that. So we're very excited to spend some of their money in our park. It's always nice. Willamette. Okay, so BD 1817 is the Willamette River access. Now this project is down below historic City Hall, Arch Bridge. This one we are stalling because there's a conversation about the new Oregon City Westland pedestrian bridge. We don't want to go improve a trail that goes to this catwalk, not knowing where the bridge might be. I think the last time I saw, they were kind of exploring 3 or 4 different options in location 5. So this one, we certainly don't want to put something in that doesn't connect to a major pedestrian bridge if that certainly happens. BD 1818 is the water access and park. And we are going to push that forward. Our council is excited to, move, as we discussed, move that forward. The Willamette River Greenway Trail Phase 2, move that forward, hopefully in the next year. And then, start those conversations about what could a waterfront activity area sometimes look like. So this is kind of where you see the red numbers where I kind of had to balance $425,000. The White Oak Savannah project got moved into the GO bond. And so, BD 1818, BD 1816 are systems development charge eligible projects. So we just, kind of robbed Peter to pay Paul. We had to take, that GO bond money out to those projects, and it's now dedicated to the White Oak Savannah to get us down to the 3.5 million we had for those projects.
Can we consider a recommendation to City Council to reverse that decision? I know that was in opposition to what the master plan had and to what the Parks and Rec Board had recommended. Because it's my understanding that basically comes out of the Willamette River waterfront access and park, which is the number one thing that we're supposed to be doing. So,
well, you can as a board, I mean, that you're an advisory board, you can certainly, make a recommendation to the council.
Because the White Oak Savannah was supposed to be a SDC project, and just because those monies aren't available right now, I really feel so strongly that jeopardizing the most important of all of the projects based on what we've heard from the community, I feel like we should make a recommendation that they consider that. I don't know. Anybody else have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I thought we already put the nix on this, the playground structures at Savannah Oaks. The last board did. We sent that to City Council, right?
The last board,
City Council.
right. The last board did make a recommendation to not move the project forward, but December council did, it's a project that it's going to happen. Yes, they didn't agree with your recommendation, John, but
okay,
you made one. You made one, correct?
Well, I would like, maybe I make a motion that we
have a new city council.
make an advisory statement to City Council to preserve the funding for the Willamette River Waterfront Access Park. And so it's 1816 and 1818. And that includes reversing the decision to shift the funds to White Oak Savannah.
Yeah, I'll second that.
So there's been no funds moved.
Right.
I mean, we just moved a project. I mean, just so everybody, I mean, that's what, sometimes it's where did the money go? There was no transfer of money. We just took a project and moved it in. So the motion would be to reverse the decision to move this specific project from systems development charge funding to go bond funding, correct?
There you go.
Correct.
That's the correct
There
way
you
of
go.
saying it. Thank you. I've been on Zoom since 5:30 this morning without a break. I'm just dying. I'm sorry.
And so just for a point of clarification, by doing that, we have the go bond is more readily available to fund things than the SDC fund. I'm trying to figure out, you know, what's the difference between the two pots of money, and it sounds like you have more ability within the go bond while you're waiting on SDC funds. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the go bond was passed in 2018 and the bonds were issued, and that means the city has available and ready to spend that money on any project city council approves now.
Okay.
Or until it's gone. The Systems Development Charges Fund is a fund, and even when we look at our capital improvements program, when we budget systems development charges money, we are anticipating money that's going to come in. So as of right now, our fund has about $270,000 in it, in the systems development fund ready to spend. We know that money's coming in because homes are being built and it's going to come in, but we just don't have it yet. So we are restricted on what we can do with those projects that are systems development charges funded. Does that help?
It does. With that understanding, I'll second John's motion.
Okay. Then all in favor of, can you read
What Ken said?
that, Ken? I can't quote it. Can you read that back to us?
The Parks and Recreation Advisory Board recommends the reversal of the decision to move the White Oak Savannah Nature Playscape and Parking Project from systems development charges to go bond funding.
Should we say in alignment with our master plan and goals? Never mind, we'll keep it
I mean,
just like that.
Make it
I
simple.
can add it.
All right, so it's been made and motioned. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And I think that wraps up our project discussion. Is there anything else you wanted to share on that? I'm seeing that it's 7:27. Do we have any other items on the agenda that we need to cover tonight, Ken?
Well, would you like to hear what our recreation department is up to and with events and programs going forward?
Well, we're supposed to study that for our next meeting.
I have some questions about the budgeting and stuff. Is now a good time then, before we move on to the next thing then?
Yes, Jane.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I'm just wondering, like, for those of us who haven't seen the past parks budget, is like at Bensky Park, there was a savings of $50,000 and some burst is $6,000. I assume there's not like a tax refund for the go bond if you don't spend it, you know, like,
Well,
like where does it go? And,
right.
you know, how is this balanced? And some are over, some are under. So how does that work?
Yeah, so basically, so the city they passed a $20 million bond measure, which we are going to spend at some point. So in 2018, our parks director at the time and working with the parks board, this whole list of parks projects was created, and they're all estimates. So, and then council said, well, we're going to allocate $3.5 million for parks projects. Okay, so that was these 45 different projects. And so now my goal is to get everything that they continue to approve done with $3.5 million. But you're absolutely right. Sunburst Park, the bid came in and the paving for the ADA pathway and things was 6,000 under. So that means I have 6,000 to hopefully make up a shortfall on another project. I mean, so it's all going to get spent. It's just how it gets spent and where it gets spent. At the meeting on April 19th, council could say, we don't want to give parks 3.5 million anymore. We want to take $1 million away, and these projects are going to go away, and we're going to give it to the facilities bucket of money. Now, the other bucket would have the money, and parks would have this, and they would, basically say, we're taking, now you can do whatever. I mean, so, it's all at council's direction on where the money gets spent. Hope that helps.
It really is even more important that they hear from the Parks and Rec Advisory Board that we absolutely need to protect the funds dedicated to the improvements in the 2018 plan.
I don't anticipate that happening. And we're
Yeah.
certainly trying to spend it and not give them the chance.
It's like government money. If you don't spend it, you get less next year.
No, this is just a $20 million funding injection of capital only money. So we can only build
so we
things
wanna
that last
spend it.
20 years.
They want to spend it.
So there's
Okay.
fluidity between the different groups and categories, right?
There is a potential. So currently, I happen to have facilities, and we have 2.5 million, actually 3 million right now, in facilities, which is Historic City Hall, Robinwood Station, generators at the police station. They're two different buckets, and so I'm doing the same thing on the facility side, trying to get those projects done in the amount of money that council has allocated there. Then our Public Works Department, with the projects that they have like $13.5 million in their bucket. And department directors don't have the authority to change buckets of money, but city council certainly does.
Awesome. So my other question is then, for those of you who missed Vicki's awesome presentation on Monday, was really focused on what we found through the information of the survey, and that again 60% of the households have people who are 18 and under, and what is the focus going forward. And everyone was very happy with the services that were provided in the different parks. So my concern is that with some of these items, we're kind of taking away from who we most want to serve, like adding changing the courts and taking away basketball, or taking away tennis. And I noticed that in the comments that were left open in the questionnaire that was handed out and that we just went through, that pickleball was only mentioned in like 11 of the comments, but that tennis and the need for more tennis was actually provided in over 53 of the comments. And so I feel hesitant in looking at this and thinking that it's okay that we're taking away from the groups that we're trying to serve the most on.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think those are all things that have been looked at. I mean, I think I was having a conversation with someone today, and we talked about how things evolve, right? So in the year 2000, there were like 2 skate parks in the state of Oregon. By 2004, there were 75. And it just happened that fast that cities started building skate parks because there was demand. It kind of sat dormant since the 70s. pickleball was invented in 1969 in Seattle. No one had heard of it, really, I don't think, until probably 2012, and then in 2017, it's the fastest growing sport in the United States. So, that's where, things kind of change and things evolve. Since we've added some pickleball, I mean, to be honest, as far as I know in our department, we haven't heard anything about the lack of tennis. Statistically speaking, tennis is a dying sport. But it's just statistics, right? And I think our goal as a parks department is to provide, everything for everybody, if we could, and try and we look at it as a park system, not necessarily individual parks, and I know, neighborhoods and people want certain things, but when we talk about dog parks, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, what does our park system need, and where do we need a dog park, and how do we get it there? But those are great questions.
And I may be way out of line, but I'm just going to share a personal observation. I do not believe this. I do not think that all of the research that was done with the Parks Master Plan was at the forefront of people's minds as they were making decisions. And there were a lot of individual voices that were very loud and persistent that moved funds into areas that actually the consultants said absolutely should not be funded. And it, for such a large bond, you would think that it would have targeted the two biggest issues: indoor recreation and some type of water sports. And indoor recreation totally was taken off the table. And the water sports is the last bucket of money. And I feel strongly that we need to protect it. So. Is that
another comment about the tennis too? I just want to say that, well, two things. One, I did some research, and so I read through all of the Parks and Recreation Board minutes from a neighboring city, and they found that when they did take away the tennis, that there's been now a backlash, that people have a concern that there aren't enough tennis courts, that they want the city to provide an indoor tennis courts, that kind of thing. And so I think there is a real demand to keep what we have and maintain the status, because there were no complaints about any of those throughout the time. And that also Willamette Week did a research study in 2016 for the most popular Olympic sports in the area, and Oregon had their number one sport, I guess, was badminton. And so I know that we don't have any other dynamic items like badminton or bocce ball or those other lawn bowling, that kind of thing, that were listed in the survey. And so I would like to see those move forward before we pile on to one sport that approximately serves, if you look at the general demographics of who it serves, if there's 26,000 people in West Linn, then it only serves 0.001% of that population. And I'd like to see the general population served more than this small group.
I think that we
Not to mention that
make sure that
pickleball people have kind of been a pain in the butt. This board. Hampton's department.
Right. And so given the past issues, Mr. Warner, have you done any of the sound remediation efforts, contacted the school next to Hammerley Park that's only 70 feet away, or done any other noise evaluations for like where you want to input it at the Robinwood Park?
Yeah, we look at noise studies from across the country and have for 4 months. I mean, that I know you disagree with some of those studies, but they've been done. They're out there. I would welcome one, at any of our parks. Let's bring the paddles out, bring the balls out, and see what the noise levels are. And that's the way to go. I mean, that's fine. Hammerley, not concerned. They're louder than we are. It's a long ways away. Tanner Creek has neighbors 100 feet away and they've never said a word. We've talked to them since 2012. And it hasn't been an issue when we painted the first courts there. So I know that there was an issue at Skyline Ridge, but I don't know that that's going to occur anywhere else that we're proposing.
I was just wondering if there's a way to not have issues later on by doing research and making sure that this is a good step now.
Yeah, I think that there has been a lot of research done, and when the decision is with city council, if they're not looking at the research and the data, it's very easy to just hear the voices. And if the narrative is really loud and persistent, it is louder than the data. And that's unfortunate. I mean, that's one of the problems with the decision-making model. And so we have to, I think it's really our responsibility to continue to surface the actual data and what we're hearing. And if we don't know what it is, then let's find out. I know that for a staff as small as we have, I've run into Ken as he's going up with the equipment to do decimal counts and do studies in our own parks. But I love that this group is committed to making database decisions as opposed to just loud decisions.
So will the Parks Board and the City Council get some data on those courts and about reworking them? Because we know tennis works, we know basketball works. Can we get some data then before the decision's made to take those away?
Take what away?
To take the basketball court away and replace it with pickleball, or take the tennis court away at Hammerly Park and replace it?
I'm proposing to take away any basketball. The Hammerly tennis court hasn't been used in a decade. It was unfortunately in disrepair for a long, long time. We repaired the drainage and I don't understand what data you're looking for. Do you want to spend $5,000 on a noise study where you can? I mean, there are so many studies out there. I just don't understand what you're looking for, I guess.
Well, it's just that the studies that I saw, that if there's any structure from about 350 to 500 feet, that noise mitigation should be considered. And I noticed that there's a house about 180 feet from the basketball courts at Robinwood Park, and then also large brick walls and the school next to about 70 feet from the park at Hammerly. So, and I know kids make a lot of their own noise, but I just want to make sure that everyone's taken care of before you take that step. And I'm just trying to protect everybody's interests and to make a fair assessment before you move forward with spending the money on something that may not be wanted by the community.
We can certainly talk to council about it. I mean, we just have an agreement on the data that exists. Because the studies that I've seen and the pickleball courts I've been to, there are complaints. I think, it depends on the circumstances, but I don't know that we'll do a $10,000 noise study and have
Can you're
have
in and out? Your voice is going in and out, and how about if I put a question on our little survey, rank these types of courts: pickleball, tennis, and basketball.
I think that's fine. I mean, I think I think people move next to a park and expect it to be a park. I mean, basketball is tennis is not as loud. A playground is louder. I mean, so I think study things next to parks, but I mean, are we just going to eliminate everything that people want in our parks because people who move next to a park don't want to park next to them? I mean, I don't have all the answers, but I don't know that noise studies for everything we do is an appropriate answer. But I'm certainly willing to listen to the board or council, and
Well,
if you think it's necessary, make a recommendation to council, and I just, we've never done that. People move next to parks with a baseball backstop in December, and in April they say, "Why are you playing baseball?" Well, because it's a park and there's a baseball backstop. I mean, so, we've had these issues before, and it doesn't mean that we overstudy every decision that's made.
I mean,
If
you look at Hammerly Park, the advantage to where that tennis court is you put a pickleball court there. It's really away from all sorts of stuff. I mean, you've got the road 43, which makes noise. You've got the brick building, and then the houses in the back are a long way away. So I think that'd be a great place for pickleball. I think you'd have trouble getting noise that would be a problem there. Maybe one of the best places to put it in a park in our city.
Well, I'm also hearing a concern about protocol. And Jane, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but it's also the concept of, if we're making a change in a neighborhood, have we heard from the people right around that? And I think it's been my experience watching over the years that if there's a big change, the people in the local area typically get involved in at least hearing about it and having an opportunity to share some input. I actually think that this is one of the things that has suffered with the pandemic is it's hard to get people together. That's one of the reasons why I wanted kind of an informal input with like a survey. And maybe this is that's why it's like, what, let's give people an opportunity to input and make sure that they know that be real transparent, get your voice heard, where you don't have to call and send emails every single week.
So can we ask maybe like the principal of the school or the Robin Hood Neighborhood Association to come speak and give us their thoughts then?
Well, what I'd really like is if all of the neighborhood associations just put their input into the survey, we can get it from everyone. But Ken, during COVID, what type of protocols are you guys doing?
Well, I mean, we reach out to neighborhood associations, they do polls, they provide us input. I think what we have to understand, though, is that, certain neighborhood associations in communities may wield more power than others. They have more influential people, they have friends on council. And neighborhood associations are a great resource for us, but when we do that, it fails. So what do we do next? I mean, that's the question I have. Bringing a noise study to someone who doesn't agree with the noise study is not going to change, neighbors' opinions on something, or the other people in the neighborhood all want something, but those that live next to the park don't, or vice versa. Give me some ideas to make every person happy in a neighborhood association who some are, 100 feet from a park and some are 2 miles. The challenge we have in parks is, finding that balance somewhere, and when we get there, we know when we passed our parks bond measure, we know that everybody voted resounding for a parks bond measure, $8 million in 1998. As soon as it passed, everybody said, "Oh, we didn't really want a park, we just didn't want development." So we had to every single park we had at one time, or we knew that everything would be in the very last part. So, I mean, it's certainly challenging for us, and that's why we try to look at it as a park system. You know, we can't meet every neighborhood at every park because it is a system, a small community, and travel is, you know, 10 minutes from the end of the town. So, but I certainly don't have all the solutions that everybody trusts me.
So I'd like to
Or
make
options.
a recommendation because it's almost 8 o'clock. For next month's agenda, can we have maybe an agenda item of I don't know, questions, issues that maybe we need to dive a little deeper in? This might be one. How are we getting community input? And then we're looking at the recreation side of our world. We're finalizing our survey, and you know, if we have some questions that we feel like we need to dig deeper into, let's surface those and put them into the survey and see what people have to say. That way, what do you guys think about that? If there are issues that you feel need to be surfaced, can we try to get those into the survey and go through that next month?
Yeah, next month would be good. I think we're about done tonight.
Yeah, I'd like to suggest if we can come prepared with some of those, and if you want to just email me, I can put them in and then we can revise them as a group. But if any of the board members feel strongly that we need to surface input and get more, then maybe we need to add that to our survey. Do you guys feel comfortable? Will you feel comfortable with that, Jane? Because I don't want to just leave this without any next further action.
I just want to reflect what you presented on Monday. Is there was an overwhelming response to serve the youth and have the whole community, especially those with families, be served. And there's been no complaints about tennis courts. There's been no complaints about basketball. So I just question why we're taking those away from those groups.
Yeah, I think that there have been a number of decisions made in the last couple of years that really are not aligned with what our master plan has. And I'm not even going to try to defend it because that's the way the council voted. So, but I think it's really important. If we feel strongly, if we need to surface more input, then let's do that.
Quick question on the timing for the pickleball at Hammerly and at Robinwood. Kim, do you know what the schedules are for those? Just out of curiosity.
Well, Robinwood is not even planned. It's
Right.
thought process.
Okay.
We're not a huge full court basketball community. We built a lot of full courts, but we're not New York City, and there's only a couple of parks where we see a lot of kids that play full court. So that's just in the thought process. Hammerly, to be completely honest, our pickleball courts potentially that we have right now, only behind our skate park, are the most used amenity we have in our park system, not even close. So we felt there was certainly a need for more pickleball courts, and we get complaints because they're too busy, they're too full. So Hammerly, we were trying to meet that need and move that project forward this summer. Courts are hard to do because of weather.
Mhm.
We can't even do anything. Last year we did it about as early as possible, and it was in May. Where we're going to try to do that and piggyback those things we need to do to courts together so we can get some potential savings on volume. But that's kind of the time frame. We're just trying to put it together and make sure we've dotted our I's and crossed our T's to get it done properly.
Okay, thank you.
And just as a interesting thing, I did check the website on Department of Human Services, and they guarantee that any contract tracing information that is shared is in violation of HIPAA, and that they take great pains to keep that confidential. So an app that reveals that information, I don't know if that had come up in community comments, and I didn't know what the laws were in relationship to that. So just thought I'd share that. Okay. Is there anything else we need to take care of tonight? I'm sorry I was not as organized as I usually am. I apologize. It's been a long day. Okay then. Can we
Let's
close?
adjourn. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
Right.
Thanks.
Thanks.
I-
Oh, Sarah, I didn't even see that you were here. I'm sorry.
Oh, I think she popped in, but she was at work, so
Okay.
she snuck in a little while ago. She was listening, I think.
Did we get everything stopped in YouTube and whatever you do there?
I stopped this WebEx. I think it stops automatically in YouTube. I have to go to another screen or it gets